here and there. Why don't we go ahead and kick things off, and we'll keep admitting people into the meeting. But let's not hold off and get started. We have a packed agenda like we normally do. So I'll hand it over to Antoinette to kick things off this morning.
All right, just really quickly, I want to step through the agenda and introduce a new task force member, James. Thank you for bringing up the agenda. We moved things around just a little bit to accommodate schedules. So first up, we're going to get some updates on the emergency broadband benefit program, how things are going, enrollment, outreach efforts. We did ask all of the ISP task force members to provide an update. But only Cox and Verizon were able to do that. And I particularly want to thank Cox for being willing to share San Diego region specific information. They were the only provider that offered up some of that specific information about how enrollment's going in the San Diego region. And then the city's been doing a lot of outreach. And so going to let Jonathan just give a quick update about how that's going and what they're learning as they're talking to people out in the field about EBB. Then we have a few updates on some of the key initiatives, activities that are underway. You know, we announced the Dig Once partnership for SR67 last week, and there's just been a lot of activity going on there. The Cisco Partnership to develop our strategic roadmap kicked off, and we formed a leadership team. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, you know, we're not only partnering with Caltrans on this Dig Once partnership opportunity, but we're also coordinating with Verona and the tribe. So to allow Verona to take advantage of the fiber in SR67, connect to it. They're applying for a grant. So you'll learn a little bit more about that from Matt. And then we're looking at other upcoming roadway projects and utility projects where we can do the same. So we can really get that middle mile network out to our unincorporated communities and tribal nations. So SDG&E is going to give an update on some of that undergrounding work and talk about some of the work that they're also doing with the CPUC around broadband. Then I'm really excited that we have an outline to share with you today and some initial thinking on strategies for the regional strategy and action plan. So we want to talk through those today, get your initial reactions. We'll send it out to you. So you can also provide some written feedback after you've had some time to take it all in. And then we'll come back to you at our next meeting with the final strategies and the full kind of report for the existing conditions and gap analysis. And then as usual, we've got some legislative and communications updates. So super packed agenda. I'm doing actually less of the talking for once this time. We've got more members doing talking and new members of the SANDAG team as well. But before we kick off the EBB program update, I do want to welcome Terry Loftus to the team. Many of you know Terry. He's quite famous in the digital divide world here in the San Diego region. So we feel really privileged to have him on the task force. Terry, I don't know if you're with us yet. I didn't see if Terry joined, but if you are, if you want to say a few words.
I don't think he's here today.
All right. So then, Crystal, do you want to kick off the EBB section of the agenda?
Yeah, sure. And before I do so, as you're coming in, if you don't mind maybe changing your name to reflect the organization that you're a part of, that way we know who's here today, and it helps us admit the task force members to the meeting and make sure that you're able to unmute yourself and speak up during the meeting today. So we're going to kick it off with an update from the ISPs in the city of San Diego on the EBB program. I won't spend any time describing the EBB program. I think this task force is really familiar with the program, with what the program is and what it's intended to do. But we did want to share that there is an enrollment and claim tracker available online. You'll see that in the next slide here. Since the program launched on May 12th, nationally, the enrollment in the program has surpassed the 2.5 million household mark. So it's been well received, and the state of California actually accounts for almost 10% of the nationwide enrollment. So it's great to see enrollment rising here. As mentioned, we invited a few of the ISPs to present an update on what's happening here locally. So for many of you who are helping to spread the work and doing on-the-ground outreach, this is a great opportunity to hear and speak to the ISPs directly and see how we can help expand enrollment here in the San Diego region. So up first, we have Kristen from Cox Communications. Kristen, are you with us?
Hi, yes, I am with you.
Perfect.
Can you all see and hear me?
Yes,
We're good.
thank you.
All right. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kristen Camulia, Director of Local Government Affairs for Cox. And we did we were able to get the latest data that pertains specifically to San Diego. So let's go ahead and go dive in. The first slide, this is a throwaway slide. You all know this. The EBB program, a $3.2 billion program, allows for a $50 subsidy plus an additional one-time $100 credit towards a device. It just launched May 12th, so we are officially in the 5th week of the program. We can move on. Cox immediately raised our hands without hesitation to help administer this program, in alignment with our commitment to bridging the digital divide. We stood up. We will continue to stand up to help provide that kind of financial relief during the pandemic for however long it takes to ensure that our customers can meet this need during this trying time. This is also, you guys probably know all of this. I won't go into it, but this is just who qualifies. We do know that there are, a lot of ways to qualify for the program, and we're very excited about that. We can move to the next slide and kind of get into the specifics. All right, so here's how Cox has approached the program internally. Our objectives, of course, are to drive awareness, to minimize disruption to existing pricing and packaging, to provide transparency during the application process and ensure visibility on the bill, make sure everybody understands where it is and why it's there. And then last but not least, ensure seamless transition when the program does end. Historically, we have found that we cannot communicate enough whenever there is a type of credit or a campaign on somebody's account when that is going to expire. And so we're working very closely with the federal government to try to learn that information. We certainly don't want it to be a surprise to anybody that, as they roll off when the $3.2 billion does expire, that this is coming. Our approach has been very proactive and multi-touch with our existing customer segments. A lot of awareness on Cox.com. Here's a couple of our tactics. We've been emailing, using text messages, people's My Account information. We've got an app where all of the information is available, as well as a lot of messaging on Cox.com. So we continue to outreach primarily to existing customers via email as well as text message. And we do several rounds of those campaigns. About every week and a half or so, if we've not made contact or an eligible customer that's been determined to be pre-eligible has not signed up, we'll continue to do round after round of targeted outreach to those particular customers. Next slide. In the community, this is San Diego specific. We have partnered with 218 nonprofits. Below is just a little bit of a logo soup of just some of the ones that we are partnering with to try to help promote the program. 38 chambers and EDCs, 31 school districts, all elected officials have our information, as well as all cities. To the right is just an example of a postcard that we are providing in both English and Spanish to some of our nonprofit partners. We do have, or to all of our nonprofit partners, and we do have additional material as well, a toolkit of sorts for any of the partners who want that information. Next slide. We also have a special partnership with Computers to Kids San Diego. We've actually been a partner with them since 2013. They are our device partner. Since 2013, we've held 300 in-person Connect to Compete sign-up events with them. Connect to Compete is our low-cost internet program, $9.95 a month. And Computers to Kids will come to those sign-up events with us. So not only, and typically they're at schools and community events, we'll sign them up with a service, and then they can walk away with a device as well from Computers to Kids. We have routine computer drives where we partner with Computers to Kids. We'll hold them at our solution stores. We'll partner with chambers and different nonprofit organizations to have device drives, and then we donate those directly to Computers to Kids as well. In addition, we have provided over $650,000 in corporate giving to Computers to Kids. And then just during COVID alone, since March of last year to today, they've through our partnership have been able to donate 40,000 plus devices just in San Diego. In addition, we're excited to say that we have made Computers to Kids, which is a San Diego-based nonprofit, one of our national partners through the EBB program. So we do have another national program. They're called our partner called PCs for People. Computers to Kids has graciously joined as well. So they're an option for people signing up for EBB to get information, and they can get a device as well through the program. Next slide. This is a little bit of our kind of sign up process end to end. It just really high level kind of shows you, they go on the website, they sign up. We have partnered with a company called ID Me to do all of the sign up and authentication. And these are just samples of kind of the process that it goes, then kicks over to the government for approval, kicks back to us, and then they will see that bill credit on their bill. Next slide. A couple of statistics, and Crystal just shared, as of, these are our numbers as of 6/13, FCC's reported 2.6 million enrollments nationwide. That's up 240,000 over the previous week. It's trending up, but slowing down in terms of the number of signups nationally. For Cox, that number, our number is about 4% of the total. We've got, as of 6/13, 92,500 customers have been signed up. This is forecasting a little bit below what we anticipated. For San Diego specifically, in our market, we have 10,400 signups. This is our second, our second highest market of all of the service areas that we have across the country in 18 states. San Diego is right up there at number 2, 11.2% of Cox's total signups. The FCC just very recently allowed for an additional month, and they're giving until July 15th for us to submit the first reimbursement claim for EBB for customers enrolled through May 2021. This essentially kind of just in terms of timing and bill cycles and different things, it kind of equates to an additional month of credit on people's bills. Also, we're seeing that the government has about a 90% approval rate. People who are not being approved, of course, are not eligible for the program. So that's a really, really high percentage. We, at Cox, our website, we're getting about, as of week 4, 8,000 hits on our website per week. This is going down. Last week we were at 11,000, so it went up, and it's kind of tapering down. We continue to drive traffic to our website. We have, like I said, multiple email campaigns. We had one this week. We'll have another one the 4th week of June, targeting again customers who are who we determined to be pre-eligible, who have not yet signed up. We are also sending emails per day, 2,000 per day, to EBB approved customers with links for where to get their device purchases. Again, linking them directly to PCs for People as well as to Computers to Kids. And then down here we see that 2,300 people have purchased devices through the program with the $100 credit. Next slide. This is just a little bit of a breakdown in terms of who these customers are that are signing up for the program. In terms of service tiers, in terms of eligibility, customers who are currently Cox Connected Compete customers, which is again our low income product, are eligible for this program. So we did anticipate a high percentage of these customers being Connected Compete customers. However, that's not how it's shaking out. We have about 11% of total enrollment are coming from our Connected Compete customers. The breakout is 37% of the customers signing up are our preferred tier, which is 150 megs. We have 3% at 300 megs. It looks like a couple of things are off, but I think we've got 13% of our customers are at our 500 meg tier, and an additional 13% of the customers signing up are our gig customers. The slide, or the graph to the right, shows that by far and away, these are existing customers. Again, we're missing some stats, but only 13% of those signed up are Connected Compete customers. All the rest are existing customers on other service tiers. And we have about 2.5% that are new customers to Cox. That's up. Just last week, it was only 1.5%. So by far and away, these are not new customers. They are existing customers who are just using the credit to offset their current bill with us. Next slide. Ways to partner with us. I talked about all of the different nonprofits that we are partnering with. In addition, we're partnering with school districts to help fast track students who qualify. So they've provided us lists, and we kind of set them up in our system to be have a lot of their information already kind of pre-approved in there, so that they would have a very, very fast sign-up process. We continue to do that. Here's a website. If you have access to lists of anybody who might be approved through one of the qualifying programs, we'd love to get that and just get them pre-approved and help get them signed up even quicker. We have Cox branded materials. The FCC has an entire website dedicated to a toolkit that has fact sheets, infographics, social media posts, etc. So any nonprofit out there who does want to help promote this, they are a resource as well, with a ton of really, really great information. In addition, Cox continues to hold device drives, because that's a big part of this, right? Affording internet, but also affording a device. We will have a drop-off event on August 31st at our federal administrative offices downtown San Diego. And then in addition, we will have drop-off events from August 2nd to August 6th at a couple of our Cox Solution stores, specifically the Santee, Escondido, and Chula Vista stores. Those have proven, especially during COVID, to be very, very popular. You don't have to donate a computer. You can donate any kind of technology, keyboards and mice and tablets and anything that's kind of technological. They will be able to refurbish those and repurpose them. And if they can't, they will basically take them apart and sell the parts and use that money to help purchase other devices. Next slide. Oh, there we go. I am done. I will stop and answer any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Kristen. We're going to move along to Verizon and then take questions at the end of the ISP portion of this update, if that's okay.
Perfect.
Just want to make a note here. We are promoting a few of the task force members to panelists. Please be sure to accept that that role promotion, the panelist role. You should be receiving a notification from Zoom asking you to attend, and this just gives you audio and visual functionalities through Zoom. So bear with us as we continue admitting you all to the meeting. And up next, we have Javier from Verizon Wireless.
Thank you, Crystal. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us to this meeting. As you may know, Verizon is quite committed to the community, and more specifically we do a lot of work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically on digital inclusion. So really this program, the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, aligns very well with the objectives that we have and the efforts that we do in this area. So we have allocated a big number of resources and time in order to implement this program. And that's now available to any customer or potential customer that's eligible for it. So with me, I have Mirna Vargas, that's on my team. She's responsible for the implementation of this program. So she will walk us through the slides that we have prepared. Mirna, are you on? We can't hear you.
You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, I just did. Yeah, you just made me a panelist. So I pressed the button and it took me away and it brought me back. So I got very nervous for a brief moment. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. As we are on California time. I will share my screen if possible. There we go. Great. Which screen are we sharing? Here we go. Yes, this is the one. Perfect. Can you all see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So as Javier mentioned, I've been the lead on the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program for the wireless side of things at Verizon. We are very committed to trying to help our constituents in need to get access to internet access, either be it via wireless or be it via Fios or internet services as well. So these are the products and services that we have the EBB benefit available on. So we have it available on Verizon Wireless, mix and match unlimited phone plans, as you guys might be familiar with. Those are acquisition premium phone plans. And then we also have it available on mobile hotspot plans. That will be through the end of June. as the FCC stipulated that we have to have the plans available in December for them to be eligible. For Fios, it's available on all of our plans. Unfortunately, I don't think that's relevant for the San Diego area. So they have it in mix and match and their classic plans. And then for where wireless home is available, 5G home and LTE home internet, it is also applicable on those products and services as well. Any questions on this particular slide?
I think it's important to note here that in San Diego, we are only able to offer wireless service. We don't have Fios in that area, you know that. So our offer will be only in wireless, either home or mobile. Exactly.
Yes. Yes. As I mentioned, as I laughed, because I know some folks were making jokes earlier in the week that they would love to have Fios there, but we don't. In terms of the eligible price plans that are relevant, as Javier mentioned, it will be our mix and match unlimited plans, either those accounts that have a mix of plans or pure, start, beyond, play, do, get. So it's available on our base plans and our acquisition plans as well. For wireless home, as mentioned, available on 5G home and LTE home. That's the only two plans that are relevant for San Diego area, if and where available. And then we also have it available on our standalone jet packs. So basically our mobile hotspots, where they are the main line in the account. Moving on, as you guys are familiar, we are obviously abiding by the same eligibility criteria. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because you all are very familiar with the program and the criteria needed to be eligible. And this was also same idea, right? How you actually sign up for EBB. For Verizon, we do have a verizon.com/emergency broadband benefit website where consumers can go and see what plans are available and the steps they need to take to be able to sign up for the program. In the first week of the program, we did have a marketing media blitz. So we had display and display online, and also we marketed via some of our endemic platforms, particularly Fresh EBT, and amplified via social and paid search. So that's what we did for the first week. We also have some upcoming media spend for the program in the next couple of weeks, continuing to try to reach out to consumers in need via Fresh EBT. And this just shows some of the marketing creative that went along with that. I think that may be the end of what we had prepared to share with you, but we also have, this is a high level view of what our marketing landing page looks like. So consumers can come, see what plans they may be interested in, and the steps they would need to take to sign up for EBB for that particular plan with Verizon. In terms of our outreach, we're working to try to have outreach via some of the government programs and associations that we have relationships with at Verizon to get the word out. So we will share more information if we have collateral and things of that nature to share with you all. And then in terms of the actual number of signups that we've had in San Diego, we did actually try to get those numbers for you. Didn't realize until late yesterday that might be something of interest, but we're working on that so we can try to share that with you as soon as we have it.
Yeah, but I will add there that the total number of enrollments that we have so far, it's not that much really. And to be honest with you, we have had a few problems with validation, customer validation, in order for them to get enrolled. So actually I found quite interesting what Kristen was saying, that they're using IDME, because we work a lot with IDME for other programs and to validate our segments. So maybe that's something that we'll need to look into, because really we want to make this available to any customer, any person that wants to, that's eligible to the program. We want to make it available in San Diego and any other market. So all the experiences that we can hear here are important to us. So we are in that process, trying to generate that awareness.
And there have been some improvements, as you guys might be aware, that USAC has introduced. But beyond all of that, hopefully by beginning to mid-July, Verizon will also be setting themselves up to directly have the API set up with USAC to make it a more seamless process to sign up. We're hoping that could help with a lot of the issues that we're having ultimately, and there are some step changes we're making before that to try to make it easier for consumers to enroll and for us to identify that they are indeed eligible EBB customers per USAC.
Thank you both. I think now we want to open it up for any questions that members have for Verizon or Cox about the program. If you want to use the raise hand, that's generally the easiest way to do this. Although I do see a question in the chat from Elaine. Elaine, did you want to unmute yourself and ask it?
Yes, thank you. Many of us in Borrego Springs have Verizon cell phone plans. How can we take advantage for the eligible people to get people signed up or offer this assistance? Thank you.
So for the mobile plans, the ones that are eligible for Verizon are our mix and match unlimited plans. So if you're on any of our older mix and match unlimited plans, like Go, Beyond, Above Unlimited, and the current plans that are in market, right? So that's your Start, Play, Do, Get. You'll be eligible to get EBB on those plans and get a discount on those plans. In order to understand more about what you have to do, you can go to the website, but essentially you'll have to go to USAC first and apply and get deemed as eligible, and then come to Verizon, call us at the numbers provided on the website to sign up. That process will become slowly but surely more digitized as we look to optimize the enrollment process. So we will start enabling things where consumers can do more of it online versus having to call in and deal with a customer service rep. But all that is to come in the near future, in the next couple of weeks.
And Elaine, this is Dominique from Verizon as well. Just as a reminder, Verizon is not a traditional internet service provider in San Diego County, as our Cox and other telecom partners are. So you may have noticed in the presentation that we will be providing and rolling out more and more significantly 5G home, which is what our internet option would be, but that is not widely deployed yet. So at the moment, you may not be able to access the EBB program through Verizon for internet because we're not a traditional internet provider in California at the moment, but coming soon.
Yeah, but I would just like to add there, sorry, I just wanted to add there that we have thousands of wireless customers in San Diego and in California overall. So if they are eligible for EBB, they can actually apply and they can get the same benefit, $50 off. So for example, for one line of our Start Unlimited plan, they won't be paying anything at all at the end of the day with that discount. So I think it's very attractive for wireless customers to apply to EBB.
Okay, we have a couple of other questions, but Mirna, I'm wondering if you can share the PowerPoint. It had a lot of great information about enrollment so that we can send it out with the minutes and the rest of the PowerPoint.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, David, you had your hand up. You're next.
Okay, thanks. Quick question for Kristen. It looked like roughly a fifth of the subscribers or those that had signed up for you for the program were in the 500 or 1 gig category. Is that, I assume that for those who are at the poverty level, those probably aren't the individuals that are choosing to do that. It's more those who've lost their job or something like that. Is that your explanation?
The eligibility is quite broad. If there is any, if a customer has an ability to prove that they've lost income due to furlough or layoff as a result of COVID, they are eligible. And then it's also not poverty level. Proof of income is 135% or less of the federal poverty guidelines.
Right. So, but I just so mainly you're attributing probably the 1 gigabit to 500 megabits are those who can prove some kind of loss of income.
I don't have that data in terms of who they are, but it's across all the spectrums, right? It's every kind of customer that we do have. And it's a bill credit. It's essentially $50 off whatever service plan they have. There's not a particular service plan that they have to be eligible. So it just shows up. So if their bill is $50 and they have a $50 credit, their bill is $0.
It would be interesting to learn that, to the extent to which there might be very many that are within that 135% category. That does potentially provide some interesting data of the importance of the internet, even for those who have a low income, and the pricing there for them. So if you can kind of follow that up, that is, potentially a very interesting finding.
Certainly, I'll look into that and see how we can dive deeper into those numbers. As the program kind of builds out, we can continue to monitor those types of trends too.
Okay, Kelsey had a question, and then Erin has a question in the chat. So we'll start with Kelsey.
Yeah, hi. I'm just, I guess, commenting in response to Cox. You were saying that you had a low enrollment numbers in the Connect to Compete program in San Diego. And just from performing some outreach out in the field, what we heard a lot from folks was that they finally had access to this affordable low-income home internet program, and they were afraid to enroll in EBB because they were worried that that would get taken away from them. So maybe, some communications clarifying that for folks would be really helpful, because we were actually having difficulty enrolling people who were in that program. And then the other thing is that folks who are calling in to, nationally to different ISPs, sometimes they were getting offered higher end packages when they were trying to enroll in EBB versus the low cost. So that's just a few comments from experience.
All of that insight is helpful. We'll pass that along. But to your point, the Connect to Compete program is $9.95. The bill credit, or the eligible, is $50. And so there is, they leave a lot on the table if they are. So sometimes we're seeing also customers who are using that subsidy instead of for internet to go to like a cell service or something else, so that they can get kind of more of the $50 that they're eligible for.
Erin, you have a question about data that both Cox and Verizon are using to drive any of the outreach that they're doing for EBB and Connect to Compete.
Yeah. My question was just in terms of your specific outreach, it sounds like, Kristen, you mentioned that you have some specific stores that you're looking at. I'm just curious kind of if you are looking at data, particularly obviously with an equitable lens. Like I know Sandac has a lot of data that's available. So just curious as you're planning outreach around programs like Connect to Compete or EBB, what, for both of you, what data you're using?
Are you saying data for targeted outreach? Primarily, so the stores are only for device drives. That's a part, we're partnering with a nonprofit, and anybody in the community could come in and donate their old devices. That's just one part of this of the program. With regard specifically to outreach for the EBB program, we're primarily targeting our existing customers, letting them know via, like I said, email, text message, the app, our website, direct mail, and letting them know how they could sign up, sending them a link, and then continuing to retarget outreach to those particular customers.
And Kristen, is that the same for Connect to Compete as well, for getting new customers on that program?
Sure. Connect to Compete is a program we've had since 2012. It's always been there. We do partner heavily with nonprofits. I shared with you 218 particular nonprofits in the San Diego market. Those are our annual partners. We partner with them on everything, including Connect to Compete. In addition, with Connect to Compete, we partner very, very heavily with school districts to try to help promote that event for eligible students as well. And we leverage our own assets, right? Commercials, direct mail, our website, all of the things.
Awesome. For that outreach, are you using any specific data? Like I'm wondering any, FPL data or anything like that, federal poverty level data?
I can't speak in depth. I know that our marketing team has all of that information, but the short answer is yes, absolutely. Especially when we work with school districts, a lot of things like the students who are enrolled in free and reduced lunch programs, for example, for privacy reasons, they can't just hand over that information to us. So we work with the schools and try to leverage their, access to these eligible students with our information. So a lot of times what that looks like is handing them a flyer and having sign-up events at school, after school events, back to school nights. We have a lot of sign-up events and having them come to us.
Thanks.
It looks like Jason Anderson from Clean Tech has his hand raised. Go ahead, Jason.
Thanks, Antoinette. Kristen, just a quick question for you, maybe some clarification. I think during your presentation, you were saying that there was a 1% uptick in new customers accessing these programs, which I think, again, not being my area of expertise, seems really low to me. If we're really focused on kind of bridging the digital divide, it's bringing those to the table and getting service to those that don't have service already. And if that's in fact true, then I guess my question is, how do we get that, or how do you get that 1% up so that we are actually closing that digital divide rather than, and it's still important, providing discounts to those that may not necessarily be able to afford their existing service right now. But 1% seems really low to me, given kind of where the focus should be in terms of getting access to non-existing customers that don't have access already. And what's the goal, or what's the efforts kind of underway to increase that number and really provide access to those customers or to those community members that don't have access right now?
Yes. So to clarify, last week it was 1.7. I just last night got our updated information as of this week, which it jumped up to 2.5. So it's 2.5% of the total enrollees for Cox are new customers. But to your broader question, that's a nut we've been trying to crack, right? It's the same exact kind of outreach to get new customers on the C2C program. We want anybody who is eligible to know about the program, to apply to the program. That is why we work so robustly with our nonprofit partners, with the school districts, with counties, with cities, with elected officials, to do what we can to get that word out. So we're all ears. If you have additional recommendations for us, besides what we've mentioned and the targeted marketing, please let us know.
Okay, I don't see any more hands raised. I do see a question from Gladys in the chat, and I'd like to encourage Kristen, Javier, or Myrna to respond in the chat to that one so we can keep the agenda moving, if you don't mind. She's curious about what will happen when EBB is exhausted.
Yeah,
and
I'm responding, yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks to you all for that. Okay, so the city of San Diego is up next and wanted to give a quick update on what they're doing in terms of EBB outreach and some of the findings from that outreach about how it's going.
All right, good morning. I'm Jonathan Benke, Chief Information Officer in the Department of IT in the city of San Diego. And over the past year, we've developed the city's new digital inclusion initiative called SD Access for All. The pandemic exacerbated the digital equity or digital divide in our region, and SD Access for All is attempting to address some of those most immediate needs in the community. SD Access for All brings together a diverse group of stakeholders, both inside and outside of the city. A city digital equity working group, included key departments like our public libraries, who've really been a front runner, the Parks and Recreation Department. And then also partners included the San Diego Promise Zone, along with anchor institutions, including the San Diego Continuing Education and community-based organizations, and the San Diego Futures Foundation and International Rescue Committee. And our mission is to achieve digital equity and inclusion for all residents, regardless of background. And we aim to do this using an equity lens, really to build a sustainable digital equity ecosystem. As you can see, the digital divide is prominent, with 53,000 households lacking home broadband, and 28% of the households located in the San Diego Promise Zone reporting no internet at home making it difficult for those residents to address basic needs like seeking employment or continuing education. And this past year, we've been working hard to build programs and services to serve those most impacted by the pandemic. Next slide, please. And one of our most recent programs is a neighborhood-based outreach for the new federal emergency broadband benefit. The city partnered with Pillars of the Community, who are a nonprofit located in southeastern San Diego. They're a trusted community messenger. They've got proven experience working in low-income communities during the pandemic through their work in the 2020 census outreach. And the outreach began in mid-June, and that will continue for 8 weeks. And really intensive efforts will be placed in southeastern San Diego, Barrio Logan, Mid-City, San Ysidro, and other low-income neighborhoods. Pillars is providing bilingual, culturally competent, direct support for the emergency broadband enrollment process. Pillars has already enrolled over 500 households and has committed to touching 10,000 people and enrolling 1,000 through an outreach process consisting of COVID compliant outdoor events, food bank partnerships, meeting with people where they are, canvassing in front of local businesses and corner stores, collaborations with local schools and other nonprofit organizations across the city, as well as social media campaigns. Next slide, please. And the outreach process so far have taught the city and Pillars of the Community some lessons as we move forward into the second month and look ahead to new outreach initiatives. The emergency broadband benefit application process was designed that so that enrollees must first undergo an identity verification process, create a username and password, maintain an email account for follow-up. And then there's a waiting period followed by a separate enrollment with the ISP. And due to the nature of those multiple touch points, the community would benefit in the future if that process could be streamlined a bit more. And then the public has expressed concerns, and I think Kelsey talked about this a little earlier, that their current mobile data plan or their low cost home internet plan would be somehow negatively impacted if they signed up for the EBB. So I think some additional clarity around that from the ISPs could be helpful. And then the FCC reporting could also provide some improvement. The FCC recently released a tracking tool that breaks down enrollment numbers weekly and by state. And while we appreciate the tool, more granular data at the city or county level would help provide us with a more useful picture of who's enrolling and allow us to measure and make any appropriate modifications to our approach in the outreach process. And finally, many early enrollees in EBB already have home internet, just talking about that a couple of minutes ago. The program goal is twofold. One, to make that internet affordable for low-income households, but also to connect households that currently have no broadband access. The nature of culturally competent neighborhood-based outreach programs is to reach the second demographic who otherwise may not be aware of the new EBB plans. Pillars is currently tracking which of their enrollees have home internet against those who do not. So we'll have an accurate metric of how many residents from the second group they're reaching. So I think that was an earlier question, is how do we make sure there's awareness in that community that doesn't have access at all? And really this, this community-based outreach is one approach to expand that awareness. And ready to take any questions. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Any questions for Jonathan? Well, Jonathan, maybe you can report back at a future meeting on that data you're collecting. I think we'll all be really interested in that.
Yeah, would love to. We can't wait to see it.
Yeah, us too. All right. Okay, if there's no questions, or if you think of something later, just go ahead and use the chat feature. Let's go ahead and move on to the next section. And I want to get through this pretty quickly since we have a lot more on the agenda to cover today. If you go to the next slide, please. At our last meeting, we gave a real quick update about a unique partnership that we entered into with Cisco. They're providing no-cost consulting services to the development of the strategy. And they have the proven process that they've used to help communities across the nation with developing strategic roadmaps. And Maricopa County is not too far from here. Over in the Phoenix area is another region that worked with Cisco on a process like this around digital equity. So they're going to be bringing a team of experts to conduct up to 100 interviews with stakeholders. And the intent of those interviews is to really help us start to identify policy barriers that are impeding broadband expansion and really limiting our ability to achieve our objectives with digital equity. So to help us with prioritizing those strategies and addressing those barriers, they asked that we put together a small leadership team, which is really like a steering committee for this project. If you can go to the next slide, please. And we assembled that team and kicked off the leadership team on June 2nd. And you see the various logos for the organizations that make up the leadership team. It's the County Office of Education, Terry, the City of Chula Vista, City of San Diego, City of Carlsbad, Caltrans, the Department of Transportation, the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association. So it's a good diverse group. And they are in the process right now of putting together that list of stakeholders that we'll be interviewing. And those interviews will take place between July 12th and 23rd. And as you might expect, many of you are on the list to be interviewed. So we hope that you will please be responsive to those requests and make the time for 50-minute conversation with the Cisco team. They will be compiling all of the information from the interviews, working with the leadership team to really identify what are those kind of critical issues that we have to address immediately, and then some of those more longer term issues that we can focus on in the coming years. And then all of this information will ultimately be integrated into our regional strategy. So we have compiled about 70 plus stakeholders now from state agencies and local organizations and agencies, school districts, community college districts, and we're meeting with the team to finalize that list next week. So more to come as that project progresses. I'm going to hand it over to Crystal to talk about where we're at with the Dig Once demonstration project on SR 67.
Thank you, Antoinette. So also at the last meeting, we shared an exciting and incredible opportunity that came together really quickly to integrate fiber entrenching along a planned pavement project on the SR 67. So we quickly mobilized with the County of San Diego and Caltrans to secure the funding needed to move this project forward. And since we last met with you all, we were able to receive bids on that project. Fortunately, that bid came in a little bit higher than anticipated. So there is some rescoping being done to the project, and this project will be re-advertised in the fall with the goal of initiating the construction in the spring. Next slide, please. And while the rescoping slightly delays the overall construction schedule, it's actually really to our benefit here with the project, because it allows us more adequate time to conduct the planning needed to adequately identify those partners that might be interested in leveraging that trench or sharing the fiber conduit that's being installed along SR 67. And we have a lot of interest in ensuring that the selected partner is contributing to state and regional directives and goals for broadband. And so we're hoping to integrate some standards around performance and affordability into that process. This additional time is also allowing us a little bit more time to work with the County of San Diego and tribes to identify how this project can expand broadband into their communities and connect to other county and Caltrans facilities. So it's really to our benefit, this additional time, and we're looking forward to working with our partners to develop a project that's successful, right? This is the first in the state, and there's a lot that we're learning through this process, as you can imagine, but we're really hoping that this partnership will provide, serve as a model for future Dig Once projects, and it also help inform state policy in addition to our regional strategy. So lots of exciting things moving forward. The RFP that we're putting together to identify a broadband partner is anticipated to hit the streets in the summer. And we'd like to select a partner in the fall so we can integrate all of that work into the project that will ultimately be re-advertised by Caltrans.
We have a couple of questions before we move on, Crystal. I see Sale left a message that he has a question. I'm not sure which topic, but I'm assuming it's this one. Go ahead, Sale.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Sal Espinoza from CWA. Question, given that the SR 67 project is a recipient of public funding, would workers on this project be subject to prevailing wage?
That would probably be a question for Caltrans. And I don't know if Chris is available to answer that.
Yeah, hi guys, just unmuting myself here. I can't speak intelligently on prevailing wage specifically, but when the department contracts, we have all sorts of bidding requirements for disadvantaged business participation, et cetera. So that's the best as I can answer. As far as the partner, I guess we could have a conversation about what it is we would expect of a private sector partner in terms of how they're participating on the project and what we expect from them. But we haven't had that conversation, so it's a good question.
We'll have to get back to you on that one, Sal. And then Barry.
Okay. It's sort of a parallel with 67. I love the attention and the digging of the trenches, quite frankly, to put in fiber optics and other infrastructure kind of necessities along 67. Is there something down the works to look at the inventory of what we have here in underserved communities in the urban areas?
Yeah, Barry, we've shared at the last meeting the fiber map, and we'll bring it up again later when we talk about the broadband gap analysis. But really, when it comes to fiber infrastructure, the big gap is in the rural areas. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't service disparities in the communities, but in terms of the infrastructure needs around fiber, it's really much more the unincorporated part of the county.
Yeah, they don't have anything. I understand. Yeah. I get it. But if you could just, either put the link to the map in the chat box, I can copy it, or if you had planned on showing it anyway, that would be great.
Yeah, it's coming up soon, and you'll get the PowerPoint deck as well. And it's, yep. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Antoinette.
We have one more question from Hector before we move on.
There is. Hey, everyone. My question was, in the RFP, have we or will we be talking about labor standards and local hire and skilled and trained workforce that will be actually building this infrastructure?
I think we're going to have to get back to you, Hector, on the exact language that's in the RFP. I mean, right now we're really focused on just the scope of the project, but all of the other kind of terms and conditions and requirements, I don't think we're prepared to talk about today. We're not there yet.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. I think we've got all the questions covered. Let's move on to, is Matt's presentation up next? Yes, Matt, take it away. Doing a lot of coordination with the tribes right now because, as you all know, and as we've showed in previous meetings, there is just really very little service, and the service that is available is poor and quite costly. So it's been great to work with Matt, looking at how we can start to build out the fiber network in collaboration with the tribes through, transportation projects and other kind of public utility projects. Matt's doing so much and has for many years, long before the pandemic. Matt's been bridging the digital divide here in our region and nationally. So we wanted to give him some opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you very much. So again, my name is Matt Rantanen. I am the Director of Technology for the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association and have been instrumental in building out the Tribal Digital Village Network that is owned and operated by the tribes that serves 17 of those tribal communities, most of which are in San Diego. And then that has been lit since 2001. So we've rebuilt this network 3.5 times. This is just a statement I put out there for a lot of people, you know, to frame things. Go ahead and advance the slide. You know, we have 109 federally recognized tribes in California, 574 in the United States. So California's got a big chunk. You know, if you look at Southern California there's a pretty high concentration. Go ahead and advance that slide. But, you know, what are the biggest challenges facing internet access for tribes? And during the last year of the Obama administration, I did some work with the CTO of the United States in and out of the White House to figure out what was missing. And the missing component is middle mile. There's 8,000 missing miles. Unfortunately, that was all done under NDA with the carriers who, you know, want to protect their, you know, where their assets lie and not share that information. So we were able to overlay all the carrier maps, all the fiber maps, and then the reservation boundaries, and then have GIS folks go in and build the, you know, lowest common denominator or, you know, lowest hanging fruit to get meaningful fiber to a position on the reservation that they could distribute from. And that number, you know, 8,000 miles. California's got roughly 1,800 of those miles. So that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So we're looking now at, go ahead and advance. We're looking now at how do we solve that? So the United States, and this is a rough map. This is done off of ping data from, I believe at Oregon State University, no, University of Oregon. And, you know, it just basically, and I see that there's a little bit of alignment issue, but those circles are supposed to show the places where there's no fiber. They shifted a little bit, but you can see there's a lot of holes in the map. And it just so happens that the holes on that map are where the tribes are. When the fiber was built 23 years ago, when those networks were built across the United States, they avoided every giant mud puddle, crack in the ground, and reservation because they couldn't build through those reservations because they didn't want to slow down to, you know, navigate the sovereign government and figure out what those deals look like. So they built around those reservations. If you follow the actual fiber, it actually goes right around the borders of a lot of the reservations. So go ahead and advance. And so this is San Diego County, and the Tribal Digital Village Network looks something like this. It's a little dated, this map, but the red X's are currently where there's access to fiber. And interestingly enough, you know, this has changed a lot in the last 4 years. There was no access to fiber, at least where we could break into the opportunities in all of the locations except the top left, which is Paula, California, and the Paula Reservation. And so the unfortunate aspect of the most of these X's is that the tribes are still a retail customer. They haven't migrated to a wholesale customer. The only place that were wholesale customers that I understand, as I've seen a lot of the contracts, are the top left corner, which is Impala, which is the TDV head end, and then the bottom right-hand corner, which is the La Posta Reservation, which is the TDV network tail end. But the rest of them in the middle, I believe, are running on retail connections, and the tribes really need a wholesale opportunity to be able to scale that opportunity for their communities. Go ahead and advance. So, you know, here's a few photographs. This is building down on the La Posta Reservation with a construction crew building out the fiber connectivity for the other side of our network. Go ahead. Giant rock saw, because, you know, rocks like to be cut in half with giant things, but cool picture. Next. So we're looking at geography like this. So it's a struggle for us to, you know, to get across this type of geography with fiber. When fiber to the home is where we'd like to be, believe me, but fiber to the home in a terrain that looks like this is a complicated scenario. Now, hanging on poles is one thing, but you know, we also don't have power and we don't have running water in some of the locations on our reservations where homes are. So, you know, we're still trying to conquer that piece of the puzzle. Co-location rights on poles, you know, is a complicated issue. Sometimes in San Diego County, and you know, we're working through that. The other issue is that we're not one giant contiguous reservation. We're multiple reservations broken up by county and private and different land in between. So the easements and navigation to get across those rights of way are complicated and very cumbersome and cost prohibitive for a lot of the, the tribes to be able to pull this off. Go ahead. On the slide, go ahead. And then, so this is an aerial of a community that the kind of canyons and things that we're dealing with. I mean, normal homes in a normal neighborhood, but take that neighborhood out of suburbia and drop it in the middle of nowhere in a canyon that doesn't have access to anything. So please advance. So this is some of the early solutions. These are the wireless relay stations that we did back in 2001 to 2005, building situations on mountaintops and different things. That bottom mountaintop is really deceiving. That's actually 6,300 feet in elevation. That's way up high mountain. Go ahead on the slide. So we start getting into a little bit more advanced scenarios. On the top slide, we like to show the snow that happens in San Diego because nobody believes us. So that's an 80-foot tower, and we're starting to get a little bit more carrier grade. This is halfway through our builds in the last 20 years. This is a reservation in East County. It's the Queapai Reservation that that serves a community that is very remote, 2 hours from anywhere. Go ahead. And so we're starting to get into a little bit more advanced, starting to look like a solar farm more, a little bit less like communications. But 23 towers, 20 of them running on solar and backup generator. We've had to put backup generators now on the grid served towers because of the the on off of power during wind events and different things. So we have everything backed up now so that we can stay lit, because people have generators at their homes and they try to keep their communications up. Sometimes they don't have cell service or landline in their situation, as 30% of the tribal households do not have access to a plain old telephone service, and their cell service is pretty poor in those locations as well. Sometimes the internet's the only way out in an emergency. So next slide, please. So here's another situation when we start to evolve this off power grid solution. We're starting to draw in a lot more solar. Unfortunately, solar is inefficient to the point where you need massive amounts of solar to charge a battery really, really fast, but you're really overdrawing what you need. It would be awesome if we could figure out the balance of charging batteries, but batteries need a lot of power inbound to be able to charge them up in a quick time frame, be able to last several days if they go out, if there's no sun. So we end up getting a lot more solar panels that would be needed to run this during the daytime, but you remember we have to run it all night as well. So next slide, please. And here's kind of the culmination of that. We're massive solar sites. This is the top of Volcan Mountain on the Santa Isabel Reservation. But we were able to deploy a wireless microwave network that serves 17 communities and actively has 400 plus homes connected, and we were able to serve a bunch of people through the COVID pandemic where we were locked at home. We were trying to scale that up during COVID, which was really complicated for installations. Next slide, please. This is sort of the views that our antennas are looking at. We're actually shooting over that first ridge line and into the mist on the ridge line that's kind of blued out in the very, very back. So it's the type of technology we're using to get over this beautiful landscape, but very complicated to be hanging fiber and doing things. And this is much more cost effective, though it does not scale to the capacity of fiber. It is, a much better stopgap than some of the other solutions that exist. And obviously cell coverage is not in a region like this because there's, the return on investment is very low in these regions. So they don't, build out their services often. Next slide, please. So Fed and state policies that can be implemented to help tribes in the process of broadband connectivity. We just talked about one, the 67, being able to work together in road maintenance and changes to be able to, put fiber assets into the ground that would benefit one of the tribes. In this case, the Barona tribe. We're looking at Highway 76, Highway 78, Highway 79, Highway 94, and Sunrise Highway to be able to serve the tribes in San Diego County. If there are maintenance efforts there, we're looking at the 10-year book that was provided by DOT and trying to, look at logistics on timing. And then, clearly now there's a wall of funding coming at us where we can apply some of that funding to these kind of projects we're excited about. You know, so a lot of this is coming to a head right now. So next slide, please. Go ahead and skip that one too. I just said that. So, all right. So affordable spectrum is another component. We're in a situation where the really cool spectrum has been allocated over San Diego County, mostly to the wireless carriers. Some of these regions aren't served by those wireless carriers. We've looked at secondary market licenses and opportunities in the past that have been a dead end, but who knows, maybe the future holds something different. I will reach out to folks as I'm seeing things pop up in the chat. You know, the suggestions and such. And, you know, we're using all the unlicensed space available on several of those towers. If we want to put something up, we actually have to license a point-to-point link with the FCC, or we have to take something down because we've used all the unlicensed space. You know, so we're always pushing on the FCC and would appreciate the state's support with the FCC to open up spectrum. The tribal priority for the 2.5 gigahertz was a big win for tribes. We now have access to a full power license. Unfortunately, in San Diego County, only 5 tribes were eligible for a partial channel of 3 channels of that license, but they did achieve those. We would like to see those types of opportunities come up in all of the spectrum auction, where the, you know, the spectrum isn't going to serve the tribe through the auction winners. The tribes would benefit from having access to spectrum to be able to do these things for ourselves. Go ahead and skip to the next one. So the overview of our network, you can read that stuff there. You know, we've been around since 2001. We've rebuilt this network 3.5 times. Some of that 3.5 has been based on the technology changes in solar power. So we've upgraded our solar, you know, a couple times and gone to more efficient battery, a more efficient charge controller, and off-grid solutions, trying to get more of a carrier-grade solution for folks. And then we also have been rebuilding based on wireless technology changes and advancement in available spectrum, and then products that are hitting the market that are more efficient and better use of the space. So next slide, please. You know, we did things like grab towers out of salvage yards and stuff in El Centro, and you know, we rent equipment and do all kinds of different stuff to hang gear. I'll tell you, we're never going to buy another salvage tower ever. We want it out of box with directions, all parts included. It was 120 degrees in El Centro. We were picking bolts, nuts, and washers out of 55-gallon drums, middle of the day. Never do that again. Next slide. We have some complications in some areas. You know, we have most of the highest peaks in San Diego County are on reservation land. And so some of those don't have access, even with cutting roads and different information. So it's, you know, we've been in some tough spots where we had to bring solar and different things that we couldn't carry on our backs up to this mountaintop. Go ahead, next slide. But I do carry a lot of stuff up the hill, or at least I used to. I'm not as young as I used to be. You know, we have to do a lot of weed abatement, brush clearing and things to make sure that there are no fire risks. We have to work with the tribal EPA departments and manage foliage and different things to make sure things are, you know, in good shape so we don't have any issues. Next slide. We have to get creative, build things, you know, that are fastened to rocks and tied into low spots where the wind signature can't rip the panels off the mountain, and do different things, you know, really unique location scenarios, and then put, you know, kind of mask our tower with trees so that the tribe doesn't have to see that from down in the valley where their reservation homes are. They approve of getting the internet, but they didn't want that to disrupt their, you know, their cultural views of the mountains and the sun, and that are very culturally relevant to them. Next slide, please. We have to deal with these natural disasters just like everybody else. And unfortunately, it likes to burn our towers down. You see that airplane dropping the red stuff, that's going right at our tower. You can't really see the tower, but it's in the, it's on the right-hand side just before the next picture, and they saved it. They painted it red, and then we went up and cleaned it off. Next slide, please. But back in 07, we were not as lucky. We were not able to clear this area because it's a manzanita oak, and that's a tribal plant that has cultural relevance. Once this fire swept through and destroyed this tower site, they allowed us to clear a fire break around this while it was in this state, and then, you know, fence a bigger perimeter. Next slide, please. That tower site looked like that. Randomly enough, that antenna still worked, though it was no longer waterproof. All of its seals had melted out. and that's solar panel frames that you see there. Next slide. And then you have human issues where you're dealing with people that don't understand what you're doing on their reservation. They haven't had the education of what the effort is doing. Why is there a tower here? They may have been away from the reservation and came home, or, you know, just angry at situations. So we have to, you know, make sure that we're constantly educating folks, and that as the tribal governments turn over, we keep everybody up to speed as much as possible. We have 24 tribes, so it's very, you know, time consuming to do that. Next slide, please. And that would be it. Thank you very much. That was the accelerated version. We could do that for hours. Appreciate it.
It's really incredible, Matt. Does anyone have questions for Matt?
I saw a bunch in the chat. I'll go back and look at some of those and see if I can address those individually.
Please do. There's some information from the providers too about different tribal liaisons that they're interested in connecting you with if you're not already.
Great. Thank you.
A really great presentation. The next up, we have SDG&E. So, you know, like I mentioned, it's not just an opportunity to partner with Caltrans on roadway projects to do the expansion of fiber, but there's also an opportunity to partner with SDG&E, and they're doing a lot of work in the backcountry to underground utilities, and it presents a really unique partnership opportunity. So I'm going to hand it over to SDG&E to give a quick update on the potential there.
Great, thank you, Antoinette. My name is Tim Node. I work as a program manager with SDG&E, and I'm responsible for much of the electric system hardening projects that we have going on as a company. And so I'll be talking a little bit about that today. And then recently, we formed a team internally to explore a broadband pilot, and I'll talk a little bit about that, although we're very much in our infancy on that. So I'll give a little bit of an overview about our wildfire mitigation program and oh, I'm sorry, the previous slide, please. A subset of our wildfire mitigation program is our electric system hardening, and within that, our strategic undergrounding of electric distribution. And then, as I mentioned, the California Public Utilities Commission has a broadband pilot that we're participating in. We've got a small team working on that. And then hopefully have a little bit of time for Q&A. Next slide, please. Okay, so our WMP, as we call it, it's a comprehensive strategy to prevent and mitigate the risk of wildfire, including some of these key areas. In addition to the risk of wildfire, obviously, and closely associated with it, as Matt mentioned earlier too, is, you know, we've taken steps during red flag warnings and severe weather events to unfortunately have to de-energize our system sometimes, which affects our customers. So our efforts with electric system hardening really are tailored to try and minimize those impacts to our customers moving forward. So it really involves you know, grid design and engineering, the electric system hardening component of that. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that shortly. Situational awareness and forecasting of weather, meteorology, risk assessment and mapping. We have asset management and inspections, as well as a very comprehensive vegetation management and inspection program. Grid operations, you know, what are the protocols around operating our grid system, particularly during certain weather events. Data governance, resource allocation methodology, emergency planning and preparedness, stakeholder cooperation, community engagement also is a big part of what we're doing. Next slide, please. So a little bit more detail about our electric system hardening effort. It includes solutions such as strategic undergrounding of our electric distribution lines, as well as overhead power line solutions, such as installing covered conductor and changing out old wood poles to steel, getting greater clearances. So these are some of the objectives of the program that I mentioned earlier. I also mentioned some of these benefits around reducing risk and PSPS impacts, increasing the resiliency of the system, and then keeping some of those key community facilities energized during those events. And the area of focus for our electric system hardening is really around some of the backcountry areas where we have a higher wildfire risk, as well as some of the urban interface areas where you have wildland butting up against urban developments, where we obviously have seen pretty significant wildfire impacts over the last several years. Our coordination, obviously, there's quite a bit of coordination going on. It was really interesting to hear Matthew's discussion earlier. We work very closely with the tribes as well on our facilities on tribal lands. And so there's obviously a pretty significant permitting effort with some of the work that we do with the County of San Diego, Caltrans, Forest Service, BIA are some key partners. The Native American tribes are obviously very key partners, and all of our private easements and customers that we work with. As far as the schedule for our work, this year we have a goal of 25 miles of electric system hardening undergrounding planned, as well as on the overhead system about 110 miles of hardening that is planned. Next slide, please. So I wanted to include a map here of some of the circuits as it relates to that that area that I'd mentioned. The brown area is really the tier 3, what's been identified as the highest risk fire areas. These are heavily vegetated, as Matthew mentioned, very mountainous and hilly terrain, just in areas where if and when a fire starts, there's pretty severe fire conditions out there. So these are identified as priority areas for us, as well as the urban interface and tier 2 areas, which is kind of the lighter colored areas, yellowish green color, hopefully on your screen there, are also areas of focus for us right now. And what's outlined is just some of the distribution circuits and the various status that those circuits are in right now. Next slide, please. So I know Lynette Aquino was planning to call in. I'm not sure if Lynette made it on, but she's our project manager for strategic undergrounding.
I made it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Lynette, why don't you take it away for the next few slides?
All right. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if you can see me. I'm having some technical difficulties today. My name is Lynette Aquino. I report to Tim. I manage the strategic undergrounding program today. The objective of the program is that we have 3 key important points on what we're trying to do. As Tim had mentioned, is that the overall goal for our electric system hardening, including strategic undergrounding, is to eliminate the fire risks and the power shutoff that we exercise during when the Santa Ana comes and visit us between September all the way to November, or sometimes it even overstays until the end of the year, and sometimes even in January. So our key 3 important approach that we do for our, if you could just go back to the previous slide, is that
we've got another agenda item. So if we could move to the next slide, that would be great.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. As you can see here, is that this is just to highlight project coordinations that to highlight the projects that we're doing in Valley Center. This is, as you can see, it's there's quite projects, different phases, different locations that we're doing, and we coordinate with the City of Escondido, the tribal BIAs, San Diego Gas and Electric, the private residences, along with our own SDG&E projects, and also Valley Center Water Districts, AT&T, as well as with the fire department to regulate and control the traffic as we're doing the construction. This is a quite large project that we're endeavoring since last year, and we anticipate that this project is going to extend for another 2 or 3 years, just because of just the complexity and the different terrain that we are experiencing. So I just want to highlight one specific project that we have a lot of coordinations that we're doing. Next slide. The next one is that this is just showing a list of projects that we are currently doing today that are currently under construction, and the ones that are in red are basically in construction and highlighted in the status, in design and in planning. These are potentially that we could, that we're showing that we anticipate if there's any possibility of coordinations for the future with the entity that are involved in this call today. And I think in a nutshell, that's the strategic underground program.
Yeah, thank you. And I realize we're short on time here. Just this last slide, as I mentioned, we are recently getting involved with looking at potential solutions with partners relative to the broadband solution and the digital divide. So we're looking at the feasibility of different solutions right now and doing outreach with the various stakeholders. There are several challenges from our perspective, certainly not unsurmountable, but definitely significant and need to be addressed. You know, essentially all of our fiber that we have currently on our facilities is supporting utility operations. So we don't have commercial fiber on our facilities that we own and maintain. Also, our facilities don't necessarily have, in terms of easements and property rights, don't necessarily have or allow for the installation of fiber for third-party use. So those are some things we would need to address. And obviously, we're a gas and electric utility, not currently providing any internet service, but you know, we're looking at middle mile type solutions and dark fiber type solutions. But again, this team has been recently formed. We have a dedicated project manager that's overseeing that and kind of coordinating that. Just recently started up over the last several weeks, and I expect there'll be some more traction on that effort here coming up shortly. And we'll have our contact information here too. If any of the folks on the call or in the meeting would like to contact us, you can contact myself or Lynette, and we can plug you in with the right folks here internally.
Thank you, Tim. That's really interesting. And we do have a hand up from one of our members, Raina. Raina, I think you're muted. Okay, maybe Raina's hand up is a mistake. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on. And any other, oh, Barry.
Okay, I just unmuted it. You know, I guess, Antoinette, I need to talk to you offline because you know, I'm on the equity working group as well with Sandag, and so I hear a couple things going on that from our perspective, it doesn't look like any of the equity conversations is being had when areas closer to, and I'm not saying instead of the tribal, but in addition to, and not addressing it is not an answer. Telling us that one area is more important than another is not an answer.
So Barry, what I'd like to suggest is that we present on everything that's happening. And unfortunately, we're about at time today. So I'm going to suggest that we have a special meeting. We did have a rural focus today.
Right.
But that's definitely not the plan for our digital equity strategy. There is a specific initiative that will address the rural infrastructure issue. And we've talked a lot about that today because there's been a lot of work underway.
Yeah, and they need it.
Last month, and we're just getting everyone caught up to speed. But throughout all of the digital equity task force meetings, we've been sharing data and information about the gaps in both urban communities and in the rural areas. I hear you that, you know, you're not feeling like we spoke much about your communities today, but it is absolutely as much of a priority for us as it is rural. We happen to take advantage of a really unique project that we just, you know, thought, why don't we take advantage of this roadway rehab project on the 67? There's clearly a gap here.
I know, I completely understand.
Yep.
So,
And then we
Antoinette, I'll call you later. I'll call you in between the meetings, okay?
That sounds good. So it's
Okay,
2
great.
minutes till 11:30 at the end of our meeting, and we didn't get to actual discussion on the outline for the strategy, those key findings from the gap analysis, which Barry, you'll be interested in, because the gaps in the urban communities are really different than the rural.
Right.
So I'd like to schedule a special meeting for just like an hour to go through that. So we'll follow up with the time to just focus on that. We did have a lot of really interesting outside presentations though today, and I didn't want to cut any of them short. There were a lot
I agree.
of presentations
Okay.
that we want to talk about. Okay, everyone?
Yep. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks for all the work you guys do too. Okay?
You bet. Thank you for being an active member.
All right. Thank you.
All right, everyone. We'll get that special meeting scheduled because I really do want to walk through the outline for the strategy with everyone and talk about the initial strategies that we've identified to design the action plan around.
And as always, we'll follow up with an email with a copy of the presentation and the slide decks that all of our presenters shared today. So please look for an email with a special invitation for that special meeting in a few weeks. Thanks everyone for being here.
Yeah, well, and we also had a request for the transcript, which private messages we don't get, obviously, but we'll send a transcript for everything that was a public message so that you guys can have access to that after the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.